Picture this: a man with a past so violent, it should have locked him away forever. 39 arrests, 25 felony charges. And yet, he was still free. Free to destroy everything for one young woman. He had been caught, punished, and given second chances over and over. But every time, the system let him slip away. He should have been behind bars, but he wasn't. Instead, he was free to take another life. One that was just beginning to bloom. Logan Federico, only 22 years old, had her entire life ahead of her. Her dreams, her plans, all snatched away in the blink of an eye. One man's spree of destruction would come to an end in tragedy. But how was someone like him allowed to walk free time and time again? Stay with us as we uncover the chilling story of a career criminal, someone who slipped through the cracks until it was too late for Logan Federico. Her life, a life full of promise, potential, and dreams, would be stolen from her, and the questions would linger. How did it come to this? How did he slip through the cracks? The answer is both haunting and all too familiar. This is just the beginning. Imagine a career criminal, walking free after 39 arrests and 25 felonies. If you're as outraged as we are, hit subscribe. Only those who defend injustice won't. Share this video with others who believe no one should get away with this. Logan Federico was only 22 years old, a young woman with dreams as wide as the sky. She wasn't just a student, she was a beacon of hope for the future. A dreamer, an achiever, determined to make her mark in the world as a teacher. Logan believed that she could make a difference, no matter how small, in the lives of those around her. She was kind-hearted, a soul who radiated positivity and warmth, a person who never hesitated to lend a hand, whether it was helping a friend in need or offering her time to those who needed guidance. Her friends often described her as someone who always made others feel seen, heard, and valued. Logan had the world at her feet, filled with ambitions to teach, to empower, to inspire. She was the kind of person who believed in the power of education and its ability to change lives. Logan was planning her future. Her path was just beginning, bright, promising, and full of potential. But everything she had worked for, everything she dreamed of, was cruelly taken away on the 3rd of May 2025. The tragic loss of Logan did not just end a life. It shattered families, friends, and a community. A future filled with hope was stolen in an instant, leaving a void that could never be filled. But Logan's death wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a preventable tragedy. How could a man like Alexander Dickey, with a history of violence as long as his criminal record, still be roaming free? How could the system allow someone like him to continue his reign of terror unchecked? For Logan, it didn't have to be this way. She had been a part of a world where she could have made a real difference, but that world was torn apart by one man, a man who had been given countless chances to change, but instead, he continued his destructive path. What happened that fateful day wasn't just the result of one bad decision. It was the culmination of a system that had failed repeatedly, a system that let a career criminal slip through the cracks over and over again. But the question remains, how many victims would it take before the system finally stopped him? And in Logan's case, it was too late. Logan had dreams, a future, and a heart full of kindness. It was stolen, and she never had the chance to live it. If you believe everyone deserves a fair chance, hit like. Don't let her story be forgotten. Share this with someone who stands for justice. Logan's story didn't have to end this way. But how could a man like Dickey, free to destroy lives, continue to escape justice? Let's take a closer look at the man behind the violence and the broken system that allowed it to happen. Before Logan, there was Alexander Dickey, a man whose path was already set in motion by violence. His story didn't start with Logan, it began long before that, with a trail of offenses that would have ruined anyone else's life. But for Dickey, each crime only seemed to be met with more chances to go free. Dickey's history wasn't one of a single bad moment, a slip-up. It was a pattern that the system failed to break. Each arrest, each charge, was just another footnote in a life already built on violence. He should have been stopped long before Logan's tragic fate. But time and time again, he managed to slip through the cracks. It was a quiet night, one that would change a victim's life forever. Dickey, along with his accomplice, walked into a small, unassuming gas station. The cashier behind the counter had no idea what was about to happen. The sound of the door opening, the sudden appearance of two men, one of them, Dickey, brandishing a gun, demanding money from the terrified clerk. The victim's hands shook as he handed over the cash, his eyes wide with fear, his heart racing. This wasn't just about the money. It was about the life-altering trauma of being threatened at gunpoint. Dickey and his accomplice took the money and left as quickly as they had entered, leaving behind only fear and the lingering effects of their violence. The police arrived quickly, and Dickey was arrested, but what followed would shock anyone who believed in justice. Despite the severity of the crime, the system didn't hold him accountable. After a plea deal, his charges were reduced. He was given a minimal sentence. No long prison time, no real consequence for the terror he had inflicted. One robbery, one victim forever scarred. But this wasn't the first time Dickey had crossed the line, nor would it be the last. By the time he was 19, Dickey had already proven that violence was second nature to him. One night, a minor traffic dispute escalated into something much darker. Another driver had cut him off. What should have been a simple exchange of words, an apology, perhaps, or a wave of the hand turned into a nightmare. In an instant, Dickey snapped. He dragged the other driver out of his vehicle. A brief confrontation turned into brutal assault. Dickey pummeled the man, relentlessly punching him over and over again until the victim lost consciousness. It wasn't a fight, it was an act of rage. A raw, uncontrollable explosion of violence that left the victim battered and unconscious in the street. Once again, Dickey was arrested. And once again, the justice system failed to deliver anything substantial. Despite the gravity of the assault, the charges were reduced, and Dickey was handed only a short sentence. A slap on the wrist. How many more times would he be allowed to get away with this? 2 violent crimes, 2 missed chances, 2 opportunities for the system to put an end to his reign of terror. But somehow, Dickey kept slipping through, free to hurt again. And each time Dickey was let go, the danger grew. The system had failed to stop him, and as we'll soon see, the consequences of that failure would come to a tragic head. Dickey's violent past was ignored. Twice the system let him walk free. If you believe criminals like him shouldn't get another chance, comment, "Enough is enough," and hit subscribe. Let's make sure the system doesn't fail again. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a man whose violence was escalating, and Logan Federico would soon become the next victim in his ever-growing list. As Dickey's violent nature grew more unpredictable, so did his criminal activities. His offenses became darker and more destructive. With each crime, he seemed to push the boundaries further, tearing apart lives, leaving nothing but terror in his wake. Yet, despite the growing list of violent crimes, he continued to slip through the justice system each time, more dangerous than before. It was just after midnight when Dickey, along with an accomplice, broke into a family's home. The night was supposed to be peaceful. The family settled into their home for a quiet evening, unaware of the nightmare that was about to unfold. The front door slammed open, and before they could react, Dickey and his accomplice stormed into the house, their faces masked by the cover of darkness. The family was unprepared. They were just ordinary people, trying to go about their lives. In an instant, Dickey was in control. The gun he carried was steady in his hand, pointed at the victims as he ordered them to the ground. The fear in their eyes was palpable, shaking hands, pleading voices. Dickey didn't care. He barked orders, demanding the family's valuables. Ropes were tied around their wrists, binding them tightly. The sound of heavy breathing filled the room as terror wrapped around their throats. Dickey rifled through their belongings, tossing aside priceless memories, family heirlooms, jewelry, anything of value. It didn't matter. What mattered was the power he held over them, the power to destroy their sense of safety, to leave them broken. When the police arrived and arrested Dickey, they knew they had a dangerous man on their hands. The family was left shaken, traumatized, forever changed by the intrusion. But once again, the system would fail them. Dickey was arrested and charged. But as with so many crimes before, he was released on a plea deal. His sentence was drastically reduced. The system, it seemed, didn't see this as the kind of crime that warranted a full sentence. A home invasion? A brutal attack on a family? Reduced to a footnote. The system allowed him to walk free again. Each time Dickey was let go, the crimes became worse. The cycle continued, and yet no one seemed willing to stop him. But this wasn't the last time he'd terrorized someone. The next incident came at a local bar, a place where people were supposed to gather for fun, celebration, laughter, relaxation. But for Dickey, it was just another opportunity for violence. The disagreement was trivial, just a minor altercation over a spilled drink. Something so small, so insignificant. But to Dickey, it was enough to set him off. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and before anyone could react, Dickey lunged at the bartender. His fist collided with the man's face, sending him crashing into the bar counter. The force of the blow left the bartender dazed, unable to defend himself as Dickey continued to attack. The assault was vicious, the sound of punches echoing in the bar. Dickey's rage was unstoppable, his violence fueled by something deeper. The bartender, battered and bleeding, was left crumpled on the floor, unable to fight back. Once again, Dickey was arrested. Once again, the justice system allowed him to walk free. Another plea deal, another reduced sentence. It was as if his past crimes didn't matter. The man had already shown who he was, a predator, but the system was too broken to hold him accountable. Dickey's spree of violence was escalating, and yet, each time he faced the justice system, he walked away unscathed. But how many chances could one man get? How many victims would it take before someone stopped him? The answer would come, but not in the way anyone expected. Dickey's path of destruction was far from over. Logan Federico was about to become his next victim. Every time Dickey was released, he escalated his violence. If you can't stand seeing people like him slip through the cracks, hit like. Share this video with those who demand accountability and want to change a broken system. Despite his ever-growing list of crimes, Dickey kept walking free. Each arrest should have been a wake-up call. Each conviction should have been the end of his spree. But no. Time after time, the justice system failed to hold him accountable. With each passing year, his record grew longer, but so did his freedom. The system wasn't just failing the victims, it was enabling his reign of terror. It was another night, another family, another home, another terrified group of people. Dickey, along with his accomplice, targeted yet another house. This time, it wasn't just about the valuables, it was about control, about power. The victims, unsuspecting, settled in for the night, unaware that soon, their lives would be turned upside down. Without warning, Dickey and his accomplice burst through the door, their guns raised, their voices cold and demanding. "Get on the floor!" Dickey barked. The shock, the terror, it was immediate. The family had no time to fight back. They were defenseless. Ropes were pulled from bags and the victims were bound, helpless. Their fear was palpable, their hearts pounding as Dickey and his accomplice rifled through their home. Every second felt like an eternity. The family's most cherished possessions were taken: memories, heirlooms, things that could never be replaced, while they were threatened with violence. Dickey's accomplice took the money, jewelry, and anything of value. The gun was always pointed at the victims, a constant reminder of how fragile their lives were in that moment. When the police arrived, Dickey was caught once again. But here's the part that no one could understand. Despite the violence, despite the terror, despite the trauma he caused, Dickey was released on a technicality, a mere mistake in paperwork, or a glitch in the legal system. He walked free again. How many more people would Dickey hurt before someone stopped him? How could a man like this keep walking free while others suffered? The system, it seemed, was failing everyone. The robbery was just one of many. The list was growing, but so was the audacity of Dickey's actions. Each crime seemed to push the boundaries further, his violence becoming more pronounced, his disregard for the law growing more apparent. Assaults, thefts, robberies, each one added to his long list of offenses. A pattern had formed, but instead of being stopped, Dickey was allowed to continue. Each arrest, each conviction, seemed to be a hollow victory for the victims. In the end, it never mattered. The system couldn't or wouldn't hold him accountable. He was released time and time again, free to continue his rampage. The public began to ask, how long could this go on? How many chances does one man get? And how many lives would be ruined before something changed? Each time Dickey walked free, his power grew. His crimes became more brazen, more violent. But there was no stopping him, at least, not yet. But the worst was yet to come. One final crime, one that would change everything for Logan Federico, and for the justice system itself. The system couldn't afford another failure, but it was too late to save Logan. Too late to prevent what happened next. Dickey's spree never stopped, and the system kept failing. If you think people like Dickey should be locked away for good, subscribe. Comment, no more chances if you stand against this criminal cycle. Logan's murder sent ripples of outrage throughout the country. People across the nation were stunned, asking themselves the same questions. How could someone like Alexander Dickey, someone with a history of violence and a lifetime of unchecked crimes, continue to evade justice? How was he free to take another life, even after so many chances to stop him? The anger was palpable. It wasn't just Logan's family who grieved. It was a whole country. Her death had become more than just another tragic event. It was a call to action, a cry for justice that could no longer be ignored. As the days passed, the public began to demand answers, demanding change. The media outlets flooded their coverage with headlines about Dickey's past. Every new detail made the public angrier, more determined. What was happening was more than just a case of one man's past catching up to him. It was a symbol of a broken system. A system that had failed countless victims like Logan and so many others before her. Protests began. People took to the streets, standing up for Logan and for every victim who had been silenced. The signs were everywhere. Justice for Logan. End the cycle of violence. Hold Dickey accountable. It wasn't just a protest, it was a movement. People who had never been affected by Dickey's crimes were now standing shoulder to shoulder with Logan's family, fighting for change. The movement grew louder with each passing day. Social media was flooded with hashtags like Logan's Law, End the Cycle, Justice for Logan. People were demanding accountability, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like change might be possible. But the more they pushed for reform, the more they faced resistance. Political leaders hesitated, unwilling to take a stand against the broken system that had allowed Dickey to thrive. It wasn't just about one man anymore. It was about the system itself, the same system that had let Dickey slip through the cracks over and over again. As the protests continued, Steve Federico, Logan's father, stood at the forefront. His voice was now the voice of the movement, his pain and his passion, the driving force behind the cries for reform. He knew, deep in his heart, that Logan's death couldn't be in vain. But would it be enough? Would this outrage lead to real, lasting change? Could public outrage truly lead to reform? Could the system that had repeatedly failed be reformed? Or would Logan's death simply be another statistic in a long line of failures? The public was demanding change. Logan's death had shone a light on the rot within the justice system. But the question remained, would the system actually change? Or would it continue to fail, just as it had failed so many times before? Logan's story had sparked a firestorm of anger and grief. But was it enough? Could the justice system be changed? Or was this just another case of a system too broken to fix? The fight for justice was just beginning. And as the tension grew, there was a growing sense that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Logan's murder ignited a firestorm of public outrage. But will it lead to real change? If you're tired of seeing people like Dickey roam free, comment "Justice for Logan" below and share this with someone who believes in reform.